Welcome to day 13 of the 28-day body transformation audio seminar. I am Coach Jerome, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to listen to this. To make some additional distinctions that are going to help you along your diet and fitness journey. And today we're going to talk about a crucial part of your diet, and that is how to make adjustments to continually work towards your goals. At some point in your journey, you're going to have to make adjustments to your diet. Hypothetically, let's say you're eating 2,000 calories a day and you're losing fat. Eventually, at some point, could be 3 weeks, could be 6 months down the road, eventually that weight loss will slow, and then beyond that, for a certain point in time, it will stop. And the reason is fat, although not as metabolically active as muscle, still requires some degree of calories every single day. The estimates have been a little over the place. I've seen some people that estimate a pound of muscle requires approximately 50 calories a day. Some people have disputed that number, but Drew Baye at Baye.com, BAYE.com, has an excellent article in regards to how much fat can you lose, and I disagree with him on his calculations in that regard, but he points at something that Lyle McDonald wrote in one of his books in regards to the Minnesota starvation experiment. And through a number of calculations, McDonald concludes that approximately 1 pound of fat burns roughly 30 calories a day. Requires 30 calories a day. They then go on to calculate that depending on how much body fat you have on your torso, there's a maximum caloric deficit of which going beyond you risk losing lean muscle mass. And I won't particularly debate that now, although I do disagree to an extent with their calculations, but for our purposes, just understand that for every pound of fat that you have in your body, you're burning approximately 30 pounds more. So taking that in the other direction, if you are losing weight, if you're losing body fat, your body is going to be burning fewer calories over time. I think this is why so many people erroneously conclude there exists such a mechanism as a starvation mode. That if you drop your calories too quickly, too suddenly, eventually you're going to plateau and your body will stop burning fat. I don't think it works in that regard. What I do believe happens is that it's true your metabolism does slow because fat does require some energy every single day. But I don't buy into the idea that if you're consistently eating, let's just say 1,200 calories a day and you stop losing weight, I don't buy into the idea that your metabolism is slowed to a crawl. There's just not enough science right now to substantiate that claim. So let's just say you're eating 2,000 calories a day, and at some point your weight loss slows or stops. Well, at that point you have two choices. You can either increase your activity or you can decrease your total calories. And between the two, I recommend decreasing your total intake of calories. And the reason for that is it's a lot easier. It's been approximated that jogging a mile for most individuals at a comfortable pace burns approximately 60 calories. So a 3-mile jog, let's just say that burns 180 calories. Well, that's equivalent to, a little bit more than a cup of whole milk, a couple cookies, one big cookie, maybe about 200 calories. So I tend to ask, what's easier in that regard? Eating 3 fewer Oreos or eating 1 less big cookie or jogging a couple miles? And what's going to save you more time in your day? So I tend to think it's easier in most regards and more beneficial for most people to just eat fewer calories than to try and overcompensate through activity. When this happens, and let's say in this hypothetical thought experiment, that you are eating 2,000 calories a day and you notice that your weight hasn't changed for a couple of weeks, let's just say 3 or 4 weeks. What I would recommend is subtracting 100 or 150, maybe 200 total calories from that total. So taking your diet to somewhere between 18 and 1,900 calories a day, and then just following that for a couple of weeks, and then just watching and see how your body reacts. What you'll find if you're accurately tracking your calories is that your weight loss should resume. It may take a little bit of time before that caloric deficit can be sufficient enough to be reflected in measurements. But that is essentially the math of calorie-based weight loss. I've already explained the pendulum analogy in a previous audio tape, so I won't go too big into detail on that, but I highly recommend whatever you're doing, have enough protein to sustain or at least build a little bit of muscle mass while being in a caloric deficit such that you can lose fat. Most people that are seeking to improve their physiques have too much fat on their body. There are very few, although they exist, there are very few skinny guys that wish to bulk up. But taking this same metaphor, excuse me, that's my phone. Taking this same metaphor in the other direction, let's just say that you're a skinny guy who needs to put on weight. Well, figure out approximately how many calories you're burning every single day and add maybe 200 calories to that total, maybe 300 if you really need to gain some weight. Follow that for a couple of weeks, and assuming you're working out, see how your strength numbers are doing in the gym, see how your clothes are fitting, see how you look in the mirror, and if you're continuing to not get any stronger, not add any weight, increase another 200 to 300 calories. This very simple method of either adding or subtracting calories slowly over time does a couple of things. First, it will ensure continual progress over a period of time. Let's just say a year from now, your aim is to either lose a substantial amount of body fat or build a decent degree of muscle. Regardless of which one of those your primary goal is, taking the slow and steady approach will yield much better results than generally taking things very drastically. In regards to fat loss, it could be more beneficial in the short term to cut your calories very, very low, but it becomes much harder to stick to that diet. I tend to look at fat loss as you want to eat as much as possible such that you're losing weight and losing fat. Excuse me. And when it comes to building muscle, I think your approach should be you should want to eat as much as possible such that you're not adding an unnecessary amount of fat. Adding a slight bit of fat is okay if you're adding a significantly larger amount of muscle than you are fat. But it doesn't do you a lot of good to put on 20 pounds of fat for 10 pounds of muscle and then have to diet that 20 pounds of fat away to show off the muscle that you worked so hard to get in the first place. You should always be approximately within spitting distance of looking pretty good. So if you don't have a decent set of abs at any given point in time, you should be pretty close. You should only be a couple of weeks away from dieting down to that condition. And that's regardless of whether you're bulking or cutting. I think that's a very healthy distance to be away from looking very fit at any given point in time. Beyond that, you probably need to focus on losing fat. And if you're too lean in the other direction, you can afford to try and gain some muscle. And that's essentially how you adjust diet. Don't overcomplicate it. The other possibility, if you're not seeing results based on your diet, is consider the possibility that you might not be tracking your food intake, or you might, whatever your system of counting or tracking is, it might not be accurate enough. Now, everything works to a certain extent, provided you follow it, but the more meticulous you can be, the more you can track your food, the more closely you can monitor your total caloric intake, the more scrupulously objective you can be with monitoring your progress. You will get better results the closer you can follow things. So I recommend track your food as accurately as you can, such that you can do that consistently. For some people, this means they can weigh their food, they can measure all their portions, they can count all their calories very precisely. For some people, this may not be the ideal approach. It might drive them crazy after a while. It's a little hard if I'm not working with you guys one-on-one, just for the sake of this tape, to find that ideal balance for you, but that's for something for you to reflect on. So your assignment today, men, if you're listening to this, is to send me an email, fitcoachjerome@gmail.com. Do you need to make an adjustment to your diet? If you do, tell me what you're going to do. If you need help, ask for help, and I would be more than happy to offer my insight, my expertise, and my experience on this. Thanks for listening, men. Have a great night, and I will talk to you tomorrow.